A police chief walked into my courtroom and told me he runs this town. What he didn't know was that I'd been waiting 3 years for someone exactly like him to make that mistake. By the time he realized what was happening, FBI agents were already walking through my doors, and his entire world was about to collapse in front of 73 witnesses. Let me tell you how a routine traffic case turned into the most explosive arrest I've ever witnessed on my bench. The file looked ordinary enough. Case number 2023, TR4418. Police Chief Marcus Donovan, age 48, cited for running a red light at the intersection of Highland and 7th. The complainant was Officer Rachel Chen, a 29-year-old traffic cop who'd been on the force for 6 years. Nothing about the paperwork suggested this would become the case that ended a career and exposed a corruption ring stretching back a decade. But I've learned something in my 43 years doing this work. The simplest cases often hide the deepest rot. Chief Donovan arrived at exactly 9:30 a.m., 15 minutes before his scheduled appearance. I watched him through the small window in my chambers as he moved through the courtroom. Everything about his entrance screamed entitlement. The way he nodded at the bife like he was granting permission for the man to exist. The way he sat in the front row, legs spread wide, taking up space meant for 3 people. The custom-tailored uniform that probably cost more than Officer Chen made in 2 months. I'd seen his type before, men who confused authority with immunity. When I took the bench and called his case, he stood slowly, deliberately making everyone wait. His attorney, some high-priced defense lawyer named Gerald Hutchkins, rose beside him wearing a suit that cost what most people pay for a used car. "Your Honor," Hutchkins began, "my client pleads not guilty to this citation. We believe Officer Chen made an error in judgment, and we're prepared to demonstrate that Chief Donovan's reputation and 26 years of exemplary service should weigh heavily in these proceedings." I set down my pen and looked directly at Donovan. "Chief, is your attorney speaking for you, or do you have something to say?" That's when he made his first mistake. He waved Hutchkins aside like he was swatting a fly and addressed me directly. "Your Honor, I appreciate you hearing this case, but frankly, this is a waste of everyone's time. Officer Chen is young, inexperienced, and she clearly didn't recognize my vehicle. I've spoken with her supervisor about additional training. The temperature in my courtroom dropped 10 degrees. You spoke with her supervisor," I repeated slowly, "about her need for training because she cited you for running a red light." "Exactly," Donovan said, missing the danger in my tone completely. "These young officers, they get overzealous. They don't understand how things work yet." I leaned forward. "Explain to me how things work, Chief Donovan." He smiled, actually smiled at me like we were sharing a private joke. "Your Honor, I've been in law enforcement since before Officer Chen was born. I run the police department in this city. Sometimes there are circumstances that require immediate response. Situations where traffic laws become secondary to public safety. I'm sure you understand. Were you responding to an emergency on the night of September 14th? Not exactly an emergency, but I was handling department business at 11:45 p.m., running a red light in a personal vehicle. What department business requires that?" His smile faded slightly. "I don't think I need to explain my duties to this court." And there it was. The arrogance I'd been waiting for him to show. "Actually, Chief, you do. You're in my courtroom facing a citation. You don't get special treatment because of your badge. So, let me ask you again. Were you responding to an emergency?" Donovan's jaw tightened. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I think you're not seeing the bigger picture here. Enlighten me." He glanced at his attorney, who was frantically trying to signal him to stop talking. But men like Donovan never know when to stop. I've been police chief for 12 years. I know every judge in this building. I play golf with the mayor. I have dinner with city council members. I run this town's law enforcement. And everyone in this city knows that when I make a decision, it's the right decision, including decisions about when traffic laws apply to me. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a second. I removed my glasses slowly, cleaning them with deliberate care. It's a gesture I use when I need a moment to control my anger. Because what Chief Marcus Donovan didn't know was that I'd been collecting information about him for 3 years. Ever since Officer Rachel Chen first contacted my clerk, terrified, asking if there was any way to report corruption without going through the normal channels that the police chief controlled. Officer Chen wasn't the first person to reach out. She was the seventh. And over 36 months, a picture had emerged of a police chief who ran his department like a personal kingdom. Officers who questioned him found themselves on night shifts in dangerous neighborhoods. Citizens who complained faced sudden code enforcement violations. And anyone who dared to officially challenge him discovered that evidence had a way of disappearing. But Chen was different. She'd kept meticulous records, dash cam footage, audio recordings, documentation of every threat, every instance of intimidation, every time Donovan had used his position to escape accountability. And she'd done something else. She'd contacted the FBI. Special Agent Patricia Morrison had been building a federal case against Donovan for 18 months. Corruption, abuse of power, witness intimidation, civil rights violations, the works. They'd been waiting for the right moment to move, gathering evidence, documenting patterns, building an airtight case. And I'd been waiting too, waiting for Donovan to walk into my courtroom and hang himself with his own arrogance. I put my glasses back on and looked at the man who thought he ran this town. Chief Donovan, did you just tell this court that traffic laws don't apply to you because of your position? He realized his mistake too late. I didn't mean it like that, Your Honor. I just meant you meant exactly what you said. You believe you're above the law, his attorney jumped in. Your Honor, my client misspoke. He's under stress. And I held up my hand. Counselor, your client just confessed to believing he has special privileges in my courtroom. On the record, that's when my Bafe's radio crackled softly. Right on schedule, I watched Special Agent Morrison walk through the courtroom doors, her FBI credentials already visible on her belt. Behind her, 3 more agents filed in, positioned strategically at each exit. The timing was perfect, almost poetic. Donovan's face went from confident to confused to terrified in about 3 seconds. His attorney looked like he might pass out. The gallery erupted in whispers. Chief Donovan, I said calmly, it appears we have some visitors. Agent Morrison approached the bench. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. We have a federal warrant for the arrest of Marcus Donovan on charges of corruption, abuse of authority, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. She turned to face Donovan, whose expensive suit suddenly looked like a costume. Chief Donovan, you're under arrest. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Donovan's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. His attorney was already backing away, probably calculating how fast he could distance himself from this disaster. This is insane, Donovan finally managed. You can't just walk in here and actually we can. Morrison's voice was ice. We've been investigating you for 18 months. Wire fraud, extortion, tampering with evidence, witness intimidation. Should I continue? I leaned forward. Chief Donovan, I'm going to share something with you. 3 years ago, Officer Rachel Chen contacted my office. She was terrified, but she was also brave. She told me about the retaliation, the threats, the way you systematically destroyed anyone who questioned you. Donovan's eyes darted around the courtroom, looking for an escape that didn't exist. She wasn't alone, I continued. 6 other officers reached out, all with the same story. A police chief who believed his badge was a crown, who thought his position made him untouchable, who genuinely believed that laws applied to everyone except him. Morrison pulled out handcuffs. The metallic click echoed through the silent courtroom. Wait, Donovan's voice cracked. Your Honor, please. I have a family. I have a career. This will destroy everything. I stood up, something I rarely do. When I stand, everyone knows something significant is about to happen. Chief Donovan, do you know what you just said? You're worried about your career being destroyed. Let me tell you about careers you destroyed. Officer Chen, demoted after questioning your expense reports. Officer Martinez, transferred to the worst district in the city after filing a complaint. Officer Thompson, fired on false charges after refusing to cover up your misconduct. My voice grew harder. You want to talk about families? How about Sarah Mitchell, the woman whose assault case evidence mysteriously disappeared because her attacker donated to your campaign? Or James Rodriguez, whose business faced sudden health code violations after he complained about your officers harassing his customers? Donovan's legs were shaking. Morrison moved closer with the cuffs. Your Honor, his attorney tried one last time. My client requests your client is going to be quiet, I snapped. He's talked enough. In fact, his talking is what sealed his fate. Because when he walked in here today and told me he was above the law, when he bragged about his connections and his power, he gave us everything we needed. I looked at Agent Morrison. This hearing was being recorded, correct? Yes, Your Honor. Audio and video. His statements about being above traffic laws, about making his own decisions regarding which laws apply to him, all on record. Donovan finally understood he'd walked into a trap. The speeding ticket was never the point. It was the invitation to hang himself with his own arrogance. "You set me up," he whispered. "No, Chief, you set yourself up. I just gave you the rope and you enthusiastically tied the knot." I sat back down. "Agent Morrison, he's all yours." The handcuffs clicked around Donovan's wrists, the sound of metal on metal, the sound of justice catching up to someone who'd run from it for years. "Marcus Donovan," Morrison began, "you have the right to remain silent." As she read him his rights, I watched his face. The arrogance was gone. The confidence had evaporated. All that remained was a man finally realizing that his perceived power had been an illusion all along. The gallery was completely silent. You could hear people breathing. Officer Chen sat in the back row, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief. 3 years of fear, 3 years of documentation, 3 years of wondering if anyone would ever hold this man accountable. Morrison finished reading the Miranda rights. "Do you understand these rights as I've explained them?" Donovan nodded weakly. "I need a verbal response." "Yes." His voice was barely audible. They started to lead him away, but I wasn't finished. "Not yet. Chief Donovan, one more thing." He turned back, handcuffed, defeated. "You told me you run this town. You told me everyone knows that when you make a decision, it's the right decision. You told me you know every judge in this building." I paused. "You were wrong about all of it. You never ran this town. The law runs this town. And today, the law caught up to you." His attorney grabbed his briefcase and practically ran for the exit. Smart move. Donovan's face crumpled. Reality was setting in. Federal charges, multiple counts, years in prison. Morrison nodded to her agents, and they began escorting Donovan toward the door. That's when something unexpected happened. Officer Chen stood up from her seat in the gallery, every head turned toward her. She walked down the center aisle, her police uniform crisp, her badge catching the courtroom lights. She stopped directly in front of Donovan. For a moment, nobody moved. The FBI agents holding Donovan's arms tensed, unsure what was happening. Morrison's hand went instinctively toward her weapon. Chen looked at the man who had terrorized her for 3 years, the man who threatened her career, her safety, her family, the man who'd made her question whether standing up for what's right was worth the cost. She saluted him. Not a gesture of respect, a gesture of finality, a military salute that said, "Your command is over. Your power is finished. I survived you." Then she turned to me and nodded once. "Thank you." She walked back to her seat, shoulders straight, head high. The courtroom remained frozen in that moment, understanding the significance of what they just witnessed. Morrison broke the silence. "Let's go, Chief." They let him out through the side door. The door closed behind them with a heavy thunk that felt permanent. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. 43 years on this bench, and cases like this still hit differently. Not because of the legal complexity, because of what they represent. The moment when someone who believed they were untouchable discovers they're not. The gallery started buzzing with conversation. Reporters were typing frantically on their phones. Local news would have this within minutes. National news within the hour. "Your Honor," my clerk approached quietly, "there are 17 media requests for comment already. Tell them I have no comment. The record speaks for itself." She nodded and retreated. I looked out at the remaining people in my courtroom. Some were crying, some were smiling. Some just looked stunned. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice cutting through the noise, "what you witnessed today is not a victory celebration. It's a reminder that the law applies to everyone, that badges and titles and political connections don't create immunity. They create responsibility." I stood up, something I rarely do after a case concludes. Chief Donovan spent years believing he was above accountability. He wasn't the first person to believe that, and he won't be the last. But every single time someone with power abuses it, every single time someone thinks the rules don't apply to them, they're making a bet. They're betting they won't get caught. They're betting nobody will care enough to stop them. They're betting wrong. A young woman in the third row raised her hand tentatively. A law student based on the textbook in her lap. Yes, Your Honor. How did you know he would incriminate himself? Smart question. I didn't know. I hoped. Arrogance is predictable. When someone truly believes they're untouchable, they can't help but tell you. They need you to understand how powerful they are. Donovan walked into this courtroom expecting intimidation to work because it had always worked before. He couldn't conceive of a scenario where it wouldn't. Another hand went up. An older man, maybe late 60s. What happens to his cases, the ones he corrupted? That's the FBI's problem now. They'll review every case he touched, every arrest, every charge, every piece of evidence. Some cases will stand, some won't. People who were wrongly convicted will get new trials. People who should have been convicted but weren't. They'll face justice. It's messy, it's complicated, but it's necessary. My wife, Martinez, approached the bench. He'd been with me for 15 years, seen everything. Judge, we need to clear the courtroom. Your next case is scheduled in 20 minutes. I checked my watch. He was right. Thank you, Martinez. I addressed the room one final time. Court is adjourned. Please exit through the main doors. People started filing out slowly, still processing what they'd witnessed. Officer Chen was the last to leave. She stopped at the door and looked back at me. Our eyes met across the empty courtroom. She smiled, small but genuine. Then she was gone. Martinez started organizing papers. That was something else, Judge. Yes, it was. You think he'll take a plea deal? Absolutely. The FBI has him dead to rights, plus his own recorded confession. His attorney will negotiate something to avoid trial. He'll still do significant time, but he'll avoid the spectacle of a public trial. How much time, you think? Federal corruption charges, abuse of power, obstruction of justice. If he's smart, he'll take whatever they offer. Could be anywhere from 7 to 15 years, depending on what they find in his files. Martinez whistled low. His wife was here earlier in the lobby. She left when she saw the FBI. That detail hit harder than I expected. Families always pay for these things, too. Donovan's wife, his kids, if he had them. They'd carry this shame. They'd read the headlines, field the questions, watch their father's name become synonymous with corruption. Did she say anything? Just asked when the hearing would start? Then she saw Morrison and her team and turned around. My phone buzzed. A text from the courthouse administrator, media circus outside, security adding extra officers. Great. Martinez, tell no cameras in the building. Anyone with press credentials stays in the designated area. Already done, Judge. Captain Reynolds anticipated it. Smart man, Reynolds. Former military, ran courthouse security like a well-oiled machine. I gathered my notes from the Donovan case. This file would be entered into the record, sealed during the FBI investigation, then eventually made public. Years from now, law students would study it. Policemen would use it as a training example. Ethics classes would dissect every decision. But right now, I had 17 more cases to hear today. A domestic dispute, 2 DUIs, a property boundary disagreement, the mundane machinery of justice that keeps society functioning. I straightened my robe and walked back to my chambers. The adrenaline was fading now, replaced by the familiar exhaustion that comes after cases like this. My clerk, Sarah, was waiting with coffee. Black, no sugar, she knew. FBI wants a copy of the courtroom recording. Give it to them. Everything's on the record anyway. She hesitated. Judge, there's something else. Channel 7 called. They want an interview about what happened. I didn't even look up. No, they said they'd pay. Still no. I don't do interviews. I do my job. Sarah left, closing the door quietly. I sat at my desk, the same desk I'd sat at for 23 years. Oak, solid, covered in case files that never seemed to get smaller. This room had seen me through thousands of decisions. Some easy, most hard, all necessary. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Judge Judy, female voice, young, nervous. Who is this? My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm an officer in Chief Donovan's department. I saw what happened today. The news is everywhere. I waited. Let her continue. I have information about other cases, things he made disappear, evidence he destroyed. I've been documenting everything for months, but I didn't know who to trust. Smart woman. You should be talking to Special Agent Morrison, not me. I know. I will. I just wanted to thank you first for not backing down, for showing me it's possible to stand up to him. Her voice cracked slightly. I've been terrified for 8 months, watching him operate, knowing what he was doing, scared to death of what would happen if I said anything. Officer Torres, fear is normal. What matters is what you do despite it. Call Morrison today. Tell her everything. The FBI will protect you. I will. Thank you, Judge. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, thinking about all the Officer Terestes out there. Good cops watching bad cops destroy the profession they love, paralyzed by fear of retaliation. Donovan's corruption wasn't just about him. It was about the culture of silence he created, the atmosphere of intimidation that made decent officers afraid to speak up. Martinez knocked and opened the door. "Judge, your 2-hour is here. The Henderson divorce, right? Back to work. Give me 5 minutes." I reviewed the Henderson file. Married 12 years, 2 kids, arguing over custody and assets, standard dissolution case, except Mr. Henderson was claiming his wife had hidden money. She was claiming he'd been unfaithful. Both were probably right. This was the work that filled my days. Not dramatic showdowns with corrupt officials, but the quiet desperation of people whose lives were falling apart, marriage endings, custody battles, property disputes, the small tragedies that never make headlines. I walked back into the courtroom. The Hendersons sat on opposite sides with their attorneys. They wouldn't look at each other. 12 years of history reduced to hostile silence. This court is now in session. Case number 2024, DR 8851, Henderson versus Henderson. Mrs. Henderson's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client is seeking primary custody of the minor children and equitable division of marital assets." I'd heard this speech 10,000 times. The words changed slightly, but the pain underneath was always the same. We spent 90 minutes going through their financial records, bank statements, property deeds, retirement accounts, everything they'd built together, now being divided with surgical precision. Mr. Henderson's attorney presented evidence of hidden accounts. Mrs. Henderson's attorney countered with proof of infidelity, back and forth, like watching 2 people destroy each other in slow motion. Finally, I'd heard enough. Here's what's going to happen. Joint custody, alternating weeks. The house gets sold, proceeds split equally. Retirement accounts divided according to state law. You both get your separate attorneys to draft the final agreement, and you both sign it without dragging your children through any more of this. Mrs. Henderson started crying. Mr. Henderson stared at the table. "I know you both think you're fighting for what's right. You're not. You're fighting because you're hurt and angry, and you want the other person to hurt too. Stop it. Your kids are watching." They left separately, not speaking. Their attorneys would handle the paperwork. In 6 months, they'd be legally divorced. In 6 years, maybe they'd be able to be in the same room without tension. That's the real work of this courtroom. Not the viral moments or dramatic confrontations, but the grinding daily business of helping people navigate their worst moments. I heard 4 more cases that afternoon. A landlord-tenant dispute over unpaid rent, a DUI where the defendant showed up drunk to his own hearing, a small claims case about a damaged wedding dress, a probation violation. Each case mattered to the people involved. Each one deserved my full attention and fair judgment. By 5 o'clock, my voice was Martinez, started shutting down the courtroom for the day. "Judge, you need anything else?" "No, I'm good. See you tomorrow, Martinez. Same time, same place." I walked to my car through the employee exit, avoiding the news crews still camped at the main entrance. They'd get tired eventually. Something else would become the story. Driving home, I thought about Officer Chen standing in that courtroom, terrified but determined. I thought about Rebecca Torres gathering evidence for months, waiting for the right moment. I thought about all the people who do the right thing when it would be easier not to. That's what keeps me coming back. Not the big cases, but the knowledge that somewhere someone is watching, someone who needs to see that the system can work. That courage matters. That standing up to bullies is possible. Tomorrow there'd be more cases, more people with problems, more decisions to make. But tonight, justice got served, and that's enough. I've spent 4 decades on this bench because I believe in something simple. Nobody gets to be above the law. Not police chiefs, not politicians, not people with money or connections. The moment we start making exceptions, the whole system collapses. Chief Donovan learned that the hard way. Officer Chen proved that one person with courage can change everything. And tomorrow, I'll be right back here because this work isn't finished.